The emergency meeting of the Coalition High Command took place on the capital world of Nexus Prime. Representatives from dozens of species filled the great chamber, their voices creating a noise like angry insects. At the center of it all, Fleet, Admiral Seojun of the Valderan Navy stood at attention. Seojun was tall and proud, with the purple skin and silver eyes of his people. The Valdorans had been among the first to support human exile, claiming that human violence threatened galactic peace. Now, 2 centuries later, he was being asked to clean up what everyone thought was impossible. "One ship," said Chancellor Vex, the crystalline leader of the coalition. Her body was made of living crystal that changed colors when she was angry. Right now she was glowing bright red. One human ship destroyed an entire monitoring station. How is this possible? Admiral Seojun kept his voice steady. The reports from the survivors are disturbing, Chancellor. The human vessel appears to be much larger and more advanced than anything in our records. Records that are 200 years old, pointed out Ambassador Thek, a slug-like being from the Commerce Guild. We assumed human technology would have stagnated during their exile. Clearly we were wrong, Seojun replied, but it's only one ship. No matter how advanced, it cannot stand against the full might of the Coalition Navy. Chancellor Vex's crystal body pulsed with angry light. Find this ship, Admiral, destroy it, show the galaxy that the Coalition still rules among the stars. 3 days later, the vengeance struck again. Captain Jiwan stood on the bridge as her ship dropped out of hyperspace near a Coalition supply convoy. 12 cargo ships were moving slowly through the Vega system, carrying food and medical supplies to Coalition worlds. Perfect, said Commander Rena, Jiwan's second in command. She was younger than the captain, but her eyes held the same hard look that all the exile-born humans shared. Those supplies are going to worlds that still have human slaves working in their factories. Jiwan nodded. During the exile, not all humans had escaped to the Outer Rim. Some had been captured and forced to work in alien factories and mines. The Coalition called them reformed humans and claimed they were happy to serve their betters. Huna, target their engines only, Jiwan ordered. We're not here to kill cargo haulers. We want their cargo and their information. The attack was quick and clean. The Vengeance's weapons disabled the convoy's engines without destroying the ships. Within minutes, human boarding teams were moving through the cargo holds. Rena led the boarding party onto the lead transport. The alien crew cowered in fear as armed humans moved through their ship. Most of them had never seen a human in person before. They had been told that humans were savage beasts who killed for pleasure. Instead, they found disciplined soldiers who treated prisoners with respect. "Please don't hurt us," begged the cargo ship's captain, a bird-like creature from the Avian Collective. "We're just haulers. We don't make policy." Rena helped the alien captain to his feet. "We're not here to hurt you. We want information about Coalition fleet movements." The captain stared at her in confusion. You're being kind to us, but the Coalition says humans are monsters." "The Coalition says a lot of things," Rena replied. "Most of them are lies now, about those fleet movements." Back on the Vengeance, Chief Medical Officer Sola was treating wounded aliens from the convoy. The alien prisoners couldn't understand why humans were giving them medical care. "Your people threw us out of the galaxy," said a wounded hegemony soldier. "You should hate us." Sola continued working on the soldier's broken arm. "Hate is what got us exiled in the first place. We learned better during our time away." "But you attacked us," the soldier said, confused. "We attacked your ships," Sola corrected. "We could have killed everyone aboard. We chose not to." "Can you say the same about how the Coalition treats human prisoners?" The soldier fell silent. Everyone knew the Coalition's policy toward captured humans. There were no human prisoners because the Coalition didn't take prisoners. On the bridge, Jiwan reviewed the information her teams had gathered. The convoy had been carrying detailed records of Coalition fleet positions and supply routes. More importantly, they had found evidence of human slave camps on 17 different worlds. "Captain," said Navigator Do-Yun, "we're getting multiple contacts on long-range sensors. Looks like a Coalition task force heading our way." Jiwan smiled. "How many ships?" 12 warships, all modern Coalition designs. They're moving fast. Good, Ji-Wan said. It's time to see what the Coalition Navy learned during our absence. Admiral Seojin commanded the task force from his flagship, the CSV Righteous Fury. Around him, the crews of 12 Coalition warships prepared for battle. They were confident in their superior numbers and advanced technology. The human ship is still with the convoy, reported his tactical officer. It's making no attempt to escape. Seojin felt a moment of doubt. Any sane captain would run when faced with such odds. Either the human captain was insane or she had a plan. All ships maintain formation, he ordered. We'll surround them and force their surrender. As the Coalition task force approached, the alien prisoners on the Vengeance watched from the observation deck. They had been told they could leave in the escape pods, but many chose to stay and watch the battle. "Why aren't you running?" asked the bird-like cargo captain. "There are 12 ships out there." Commander Rena stood beside him watching the approaching fleet. "Because we're not the same humans you exiled 2 centuries ago. We learned to fight in the darkness between stars. We learned to build weapons that don't exist in your databases. Most importantly, we learned that sometimes you have to make a stand. But you'll all die," the alien captain said. Rena's expression was calm. "Maybe. But even if we do, we'll make them remember why they feared us in the first place." The Coalition fleet spread out in attack formation. Admiral Seojun opened a communication channel to the human ship. "Human vessel, you are outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender now and your crew will be treated with mercy." Captain Ji-Wan's image appeared on the main screen. She looked exactly like what Coalition propaganda said humans looked like. Pale skin, dark hair, eyes that seemed too bright. But there was something else in her expression, something the propaganda had never captured. Intelligence, determination, and complete fearlessness. "Admiral Seojun," she said, as if greeting an old friend. "I've read about you in our intelligence files. You were the one who hunted down the last human colony ships trying to escape the purge." Seojin felt uncomfortable under her steady gaze. "I was following orders. The exile was legal under Coalition law." "Legal," Ji-Wan repeated as if tasting the word. "Yes, it was legal to hunt children through space. Legal to destroy hospital ships. Legal to turn away refugees who just wanted to go home." Her voice never rose, but somehow it filled the bridge with ice. "That was war," Seojin said, but his voice sounded weak even to himself. "Yes," Ji-Wan agreed. "It was. And war never really ends, Admiral. It just takes breaks." She leaned forward slightly. "Break time is over." The communication cut off. On 12 Coalition ships, alarms began to sound. The Vengeance was moving, and it was heading straight for them. "All ships open fire," Admiral Seojin commanded. The space around the Vengeance lit, up with laser beams and missile trails. Energy weapons that could vaporize asteroids struck the human ship's shields. For a moment, the Coalition crews cheered. Then they realized their weapons weren't working. The Vengeance's shields absorbed the laser fire like it was nothing. The missiles exploded harmlessly against some kind of barrier they couldn't understand. And the human ship kept coming. "Impossible," whispered Seojin's tactical officer. "Our weapons should have destroyed them." Different weapons, Seojin realized with growing horror. They built different kinds of weapons. The Vengeance opened fire. The Coalition had spent 2 centuries perfecting energy weapons and defensive shields. They had built the perfect system. Energy weapons that could destroy anything and energy shields that could stop anything. They had forgotten about kinetic weapons. Chunks of metal moving at incredible speed. Simple, brutal, and unstoppable by energy shields. The first Coalition ship died in seconds as railgun rounds punched through its hull. The second ship tried to run, but human missiles caught it. These weren't the guided missiles the Coalition knew. These were smart weapons that thought for themselves and adapted to their targets. "All ships, retreat," Admiral Seojin ordered, but it was too late. The Vengeance moved through the Coalition formation like death itself. Its weapons never missed. Its armor never failed. One by one, the Coalition ships fell. When the battle was, over 11 coalition warships were dead or dying. Only Admiral Seojin's flagship remained, its engines damaged but still working. "This is Captain Ji-won," came the calm voice over the communication system. "Admiral, you have two choices. You can stay and die with honor, or you can run back to your masters and tell them what you've seen here." Seojin stared at the wreckage of his fleet. His pride told him to fight. His duty told him to survive and report back. "We're leaving," he said finally. "Good choice," Captain Ji-won replied. "And Admiral, tell the Coalition High Command that this is just the beginning. We've had 200 years to think about coming home. We've had 200 years to get angry. And we've had 200 years to get ready." The darkness between stars was complete. No light touched the massive ship as it drifted in the empty space beyond the galaxy. For 200 years, the KHS Vengeance had waited in silence. Now, Captain Ji-won stood on the bridge and watched the distant stars grow brighter as her ship moved toward them. "Quantum drives are working perfectly, Captain," said Chief Engineer Minho from his station. His voice was calm, but Ji-won could hear the excitement underneath. They had all been waiting for this day their entire lives. Ji-won nodded and looked at the main screen. The galaxy spread before them like a jewel made of light. Somewhere in those stars was Earth, the home world her people had been forced to leave. Somewhere out there were the aliens who had called humans too violent to live among civilized worlds. 2 centuries, she said quietly. 200 years of hiding and building and waiting. Weapons Officer Hyuna looked up from her controls. "The Coalition thinks we're all dead or tamed. They're about to learn how wrong they are." The Vengeance was not like the human ships of old. The Exile had taught humanity hard lessons. When you cannot rely on others, you must become stronger yourself. When you cannot trade for better weapons, you must build them from nothing. When the galaxy throws you away, you must prove you belong. The ship was 3 kilometers long and covered in armor that could stop any weapon the Coalition had. Inside, the crew of 5,000 had trained their whole lives for this mission. They were the children and grandchildren of the humans who had been exiled. They had grown up on stories of blue skies and green forests, of a world they had never seen but would die to reclaim. "Captain," said Navigation Officer Do-hyun, "we're approaching the edge of Coalition space. The Kepler 442 system is 2 hours away." Ji-won smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "Good. It's time to announce our return." The Kepler 442 monitoring station hung in space like a metal spider. Its job was to watch for any humans trying to return to civilized space. For 50 years it had been commanded by Governor Taiyang, an Altarian who took great pleasure in hunting down human refugees. Taiyang was tall and thin, with blue skin and 4 arms. His species believed they were naturally superior to humans. They had voted for human exile and celebrated when the last human ships disappeared into deep space. "Another quiet day," Taeyang said to his aide as he reviewed the daily reports. "No sign of human activity in this sector for 6 months. I think we finally got them all." His aide, a younger Altarian named Keth, nodded. "The galaxy is much safer without their violent influence, Governor." Taeyang was about to respond when alarms began screaming throughout the station. Red lights flashed as the emergency system activated. "What's happening?" Taeyang demanded. The sensor operator, a nervous creature from the hegemony species, stared at his screen in disbelief. "Governor, we have a massive contact approaching. It's huge." "Show me," Taeyang ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing a radar image of something enormous moving toward them. The contact was the size of a small moon, but the sensors said it was artificial. "That's impossible," Keth whispered. "Nothing that big could move so fast." Taeyang felt a cold fear in his stomach. He had heard stories from the old days, tales of human warships that could destroy entire fleets. But those ships had been destroyed 2 centuries ago. Everyone knew that. "Try to communicate with it," he ordered. The communications officer worked frantically at his station. "I'm getting no response, Governor. Whatever it is, it's not talking." Then the thing dropped out of hyperspace right in front of them. The Vengeance appeared like a mountain of metal and death. Its hull was dark gray, covered in weapons that looked like they could crack planets. Along its sides, human words were painted in bright red. "We do not forgive. We do not forget." On the station, everyone stared in horrified silence. They all knew what they were looking at. Somehow, impossibly, a human dreadnought had returned. Taeyang's hands shook as he grabbed the communications control. "This is Governor Taeyang of the Coalition Monitoring Station. You are in violation of the Exile Treaty. Leave this space immediately or face destruction." For a long moment there was only silence. Then a voice came through the speakers, speaking perfect Coalition standard with a human accent. "Governor Taeyang," the voice said. It was a woman's voice, calm and cold. "My name is Captain G1 of the Human Defense Force. For 50 years you have hunted my people like animals. You have killed refugees who only wanted to go home. You have celebrated our suffering." Taeyang felt his blood turn to ice. The exile was legal under Coalition law. Humans were judged too dangerous. "Dangerous?" Captain G1's voice cut him off. "You haven't seen dangerous yet, but you're about to learn." The Vengeance's weapons began to glow with deadly light. "All stations, fire at will," G1 ordered. The attack began with kinetic rounds moving at incredible speed. The station's energy, shields designed to stop laser weapons, were useless against chunks of metal traveling at nearly light speed. The shields flickered and died as the first rounds punched through. Then came the plasma cannons. Streams of superheated matter cut through the station's hull like it was paper. Sections of the station exploded in silent flashes of light. Taeyang tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. The station was breaking apart around him. Through the chaos, he could hear Captain Jiwan's voice over the communication system. "This is for every human child you turned away. This is for every refugee you killed. This is for 200 years of exile." The weapons officer, Huna, watched the destruction from the Vengeance's bridge. "Direct hits on all major systems," she reported. "Their shields are down, weapons are offline." "Any survivors?" Jiwan asked. "Detecting escape pods launching," Huna replied. "Should we stop them?" Jiwan considered for a moment. The old her might have let them all die, but humans had learned something during their exile. They had learned the difference between justice and murder. "Let them go," she said, "but make sure their emergency beacons are broadcasting on all Coalition frequencies. I want everyone to hear their story." Chief Engineer Minho looked up from his station. "Captain, the station is completely destroyed. We've sent our message." Jiwan nodded and turned to look at the stars again. Somewhere out there, Coalition leaders were getting their first hint that humanity had returned. Soon there would be fear in the halls of power. Soon the galaxy would remember why humans had been exiled in the first place. "Set course for the Vega system," she ordered. "Our work is just beginning." As the Vengeance disappeared into hyperspace, the wreckage of the monitoring station drifted in space. In the escape pods, the survivors sent desperate messages to Coalition Command. The ghost ship was real. The humans were back, and they had not forgotten what the galaxy had done to them. The exile was broken. The reckoning had begun. The Bellerophon asteroid field stretched for millions of kilometers through space. Chunks of rock and metal drifted in slow orbits around a dead star. It was the perfect place for an ambush, and Admiral Seojun knew it. "They're here somewhere," he said, standing on the bridge of his new flagship, the CSV Eternal Victory. Around him, the largest Coalition task force ever assembled waited in formation. 150 warships representing every major species in the galaxy. After his defeat at Vega, Seojun had been stripped of rank and nearly executed for cowardice. Only his detailed report of human capabilities had saved his life. The Coalition High Command needed someone who had faced the Vengeance and lived to tell about it. "Sir, long-range sensors are picking up something," reported his new tactical officer, a young Valdoran named Kess. "It's small, but the signature matches the human ship." Seojun nodded grimly. Intelligence reports said the Vengeance had been Naiyao, raiding Coalition supply lines for 3 weeks, always striking fast and disappearing before reinforcements could arrive. This time, they had set a trap. All ships, Battle formation. Remember, this ship has weapons that can punch through our shields. Keep moving. Stay spread out and focus fire on. The communication channel crackled to life. Captain Jiwan's voice filled the bridge, calm and cold as always. Admiral Seojin, I see you brought friends this time. Captain Jiwan, Seojin replied, trying to keep his voice steady. You're surrounded by 150 ships. Your vessel is impressive, but not even humans can fight those odds. Surrender now, and I promise your crew will receive proper treatment. There was a pause. Then Jiwan laughed. It wasn't a cruel laugh, but somehow that made it worse. Proper treatment? Like the treatment you gave to the refugee ships at Ross 128? Like the treatment human children received on your prison worlds? Her voice hardened. We remember everything, Admiral. Every atrocity. Every broken promise. Every dead child. Exile was voted on by the entire Galactic Coalition, Seojin said. Humanity was judged too violent. Too violent. Captain Jiwan's image appeared on the main screen. Behind her, the bridge of the Vengeance buzzed with activity. Human crew members worked calmly at their stations, showing no fear despite the impossible odds. Let me tell you about violence, Admiral. Violence is hunting hospital ships through hyperspace. Violence is bombing refugee camps from orbit. Violence is telling children they can't go home because their species is too dangerous to exist. She leaned forward in her captain's chair. We didn't choose violence, Admiral. You taught it to us. For 200 years, we've been very good students. The transmission ended. Seojun felt cold sweat on his forehead despite the bridge's climate control. Sir, said Kess, they're moving. The human ship is heading directly for us. Through the asteroid field, the Vengeance moved like a predator. Its dark hull blended with the shadows between the rocks, appearing and disappearing as it wove through the debris. On the ship's bridge, the crew worked with the precision of people who had trained their entire lives for this moment. Multiple contacts all around us, reported Weapons Officer Hyuna. They're trying to surround us. Navigator Do-hyun studied his displays. I count 147 active ships. They've got us outnumbered about 30-1. Sounds fair, said Captain Jiwan. She turned to look at her crew. These were the children of exile, born in the darkness between stars. They had grown up on stories of Earth's blue skies, but they had learned to fight in the black void of space. All stations report ready, Captain, said Commander Rena. Jiwan nodded. Then let's show the galaxy what we learned in the dark. The Vengeance erupted from behind a massive asteroid, its weapons already firing. Railgun rounds streaked through space at incredible speed, punching through Coalition shields like they were made of paper. 2 Coalition destroyers died in the first seconds of the battle. Evasive maneuvers, Admiral Seojin shouted. All ships concentrate fire on the human vessel, the space around the Vengeance filled with laser beams and missile trails. Energy weapons that could destroy planets struck the human ship's hull. For a moment, the Coalition crews thought they had won. Then the smoke cleared, and the Vengeance was still there. Impossible, whispered Kess. We hit them with everything we had. Their armor, Seojun realized with growing horror. It's not like anything we've seen. On the Vengeance, Chief Engineer Minho monitored the ship's systems. Hull integrity at 94%, he reported. The new armor is holding perfectly. The armor wasn't just metal. During their exile, human engineers had learned to grow crystal matrices that could absorb and redistribute energy. Each impact made the armor stronger, not weaker. Return fire, ordered Captain Jiwan. What followed was not a battle. It was a lesson in how much humanity had learned during their exile. The Vengeance moved through the asteroid field like it belonged there. Navigator Do-hyun had spent his entire life learning to fly in conditions no sane pilot would attempt. He used the asteroids as cover and weapons, guiding the massive ship between rocks with impossible precision. Meanwhile, Gunnery Chief Yuna coordinated the ship's weapons with the skill of a conductor leading an orchestra. Every shot was perfect. Every target was chosen for maximum effect. The Coalition had superior numbers, but humans had superior tactics. They're using the asteroids against us, Admiral Seojin said, watching as another of his ships was crushed between two rocks that the Vengeance had somehow guided together. How are they doing that? His science officer, an insect-like being from the Hive Collective, studied the sensor data. They're using microgravity fields, sir. Very precise ones. It's technology we've never seen before. Because it was human technology. While the Coalition had spent 2 centuries perfecting the same old weapons, humans had been forced to innovate. When you can't rely on superior numbers, you learn to be smarter. When you can't buy better weapons, you learn to build them yourself. The Vengeance's missiles were a perfect example. They weren't just guided weapons, they were artificial intelligences that could learn and adapt. When Coalition ships deployed, countermeasures, the missiles figured out how to overcome them. Sir, we've lost 40 ships, reported Kess, his voice shaking, and we haven't even scratched their hull. Admiral Seojin stared at the tactical display in disbelief. His massive fleet was being torn apart by a single enemy ship. It wasn't possible. It couldn't be happening. But it was. The Vengeance appeared. From behind a cluster of asteroids, its weapons glowing with deadly light. 3 Coalition cruisers tried to block its path, but human railgun rounds punched through them like they were made of cardboard. All ships, retreat, Seojun finally ordered. Full withdrawal. But the Vengeance wasn't finished with them yet. Pilot, Dohyun pushed his ship to its limits, chasing down fleeing Coalition vessels. The massive Dreadnought moved with the grace of a fighter craft, weaving between asteroids and debris. One by one, it caught the running ships. Sir, they're jamming our hyperspace drives, reported the communications officer on Seojin's flagship. We can't jump out of the system. Then we fight, Seojun said, trying to sound braver than he felt. With what? Kess asked. We have 12 ships left out of 150. Seojun looked around his bridge. His crew was staring at him, with fear and desperation. They all knew they were going to die. The only question was whether it would be quick. The Vengeance appeared on their main screen, growing larger as it approached. Its dark hull was scarred from the battle, but it still moved like a living thing, like something that was hunting them. Admiral, came Captain Jiwon's voice over the communication system. You have 10 seconds to order your remaining ships to stand down. And if I refuse? Seojin asked. Then you'll join the rest of your fleet. Seojin looked at the tactical display. Debris from 138 Coalition ships floated among the asteroids. The largest fleet ever assembled had been destroyed by a single human vessel. All ships, cease fire and power down weapons, he ordered. The surviving Coalition ships went dark, floating helplessly in space. The Vengeance moved among them like a shark among minnows, its weapons still trained on the disabled vessels. Very good, said Captain Jiwon. Now, Admiral, I want you to send a message to Coalition High Command. Tell them what happened here today. Tell them that one human ship destroyed the largest fleet in galactic history. They won't believe it, Seojin said. Then show them the wreckage, show them the bodies, show them what happens when you try to keep humanity in chains. Jiwon's image appeared on the main screen again. Behind her, the human crew worked calmly at their stations. They showed no triumph, no joy at their victory. They looked like people who were simply doing a necessary job. The galaxy exiled us because they said we were too violent to live among civilized species, Jiwon said. They were wrong. We weren't violent enough. But Exile taught us to be better. Exile taught us to be stronger. Exile taught us that sometimes violence is the only language civilized species understand. She leaned back in her chair. Go home, Admiral. Tell your masters that the exile is over. Tell them that humanity is coming home whether they like it or not. And tell them that this was just one ship, we have more. The communication ended. The news traveled faster than light across the galaxy. On every Coalition world, beings gathered around information screens to watch the impossible footage. The wreckage of 138 warships floating in the Bellerophon asteroid field. The survivors' testimony about a single human vessel that fought like something out of their worst nightmares. On the industrial world of New Busan, Kyung put down his welding torch and looked up at the factory's information screen. Around him, Other human workers stopped their tasks to watch. They had been slaves for 5 generations, forced to build coalition ships and weapons while being told they should be grateful for the chance to serve. The Altarian overseer, Vec, noticed the work stoppage and activated his pain control device. Electric shocks ran through the collar around Kyung's neck, bringing him to his knees. "Back to work, humans," Vec commanded. "This propaganda changes nothing. You are property of the coalition, and you will remain property." Kyung struggled to his feet, blood running from where he had bitten his tongue. But his eyes stayed fixed on the screen, where Admiral Seojin was giving his report to Coalition Command. "One ship," Kyung whispered. "One human ship did all that." The other workers heard him. The whisper spread through the factory like wildfire. One human ship. Their people were out there. Their people were fighting back. That night, Kyung met with other workers in the hidden spaces beneath the factory. They had been planning a revolt for months, but they had always known it would be suicide. The coalition had orbital weapons platforms that could destroy the entire city if the humans got out of line. "Things are different now," Kyung told the gathered workers. "The galaxy knows we're not beaten. They know we're not afraid anymore. The weapons platforms are still there," pointed out Nora, an older woman who had worked in the factories her entire life. "If we revolt, they'll kill everyone on this world, human and alien alike." "Maybe," Kyung said, "but maybe not. The coalition is scared now. They're not thinking clearly, and scared people make mistakes." 3 days later, the humans of New Busan rose in revolt. It began with Kyung's factory, where the workers overpowered their overseers and seized control of the production lines. Within hours, the rebellion spread to every factory, mine, and processing plant on the world. The coalition garrison tried to respond, but they found themselves fighting an enemy they didn't understand. These weren't the broken slaves they expected. These were people who had heard that their species was fighting back among the stars. These were people who had found hope. The orbital weapons platforms prepared to fire, but Governor Sek hesitated. New Busan produced 30% of the coalition, Navy's advanced electronics. Destroying the planet would cripple the war effort just when they needed every advantage. While he debated, the humans took control of the planetary defense network. "Governor," came Kyung's voice over the communication system. "My name is Kyung. I speak for the free humans of New Busan." Governor Sek was a reptilian creature from the Saurian Empire. His species had enslaved humans for over a century, using them as factory workers and miners. He had never spoken to a human as an equal before. "You are in violation of colonial law," he said, trying to sound authoritative. "Surrender immediately and face merciful reconditioning." "Reconditioning?" Kyung laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You mean lobotomy. You mean turning us into mindless drones who smile while you work us to death." "It's for your own good," Governor Sek insisted. "Humans are naturally violent. The procedure makes you peaceful." "Peaceful," Kyung repeated. "Like the humans on the Vengeance?" "Governor, have you seen the footage from Bellerophon? Do those humans look peaceful to you?" Governor Sek had seen the footage. Every being in the galaxy had seen it by now. The human ship moving through the coalition fleet like death itself, unstoppable and merciless. "One ship," he said, trying to convince himself as much as Kyung. "One rogue vessel doesn't represent your entire species." "Maybe not," Kyung agreed, "but it represents hope. And hope is more dangerous to you than any weapon." Across the galaxy, similar uprisings began on dozens of worlds. On the mining planet Kepler Prime, human workers seized the orbital elevators and cut off the flow of rare metals to coalition worlds. On the agricultural world Haven, human farmers led by a woman named Bora declared independence and began broadcasting the true history of humanity's exile. The coalition had always controlled information carefully. They told their citizens that humans had been violent savages who threatened galactic peace. They said the exile had been necessary to protect civilized species from human aggression. Now, for the first time in 2 centuries, people were hearing the human side of the story. Bora stood in front of a camera in Haven's main communication center. She was young, with the pale skin and dark hair common to humans, but her eyes held the weight of generations of suffering. "My great-grandmother was on the colony ship New Horizon when the Coalition fleet attacked," she said. "The ship was full of families trying to escape to the outer rim. Children, old people, pregnant women. The Coalition destroyed it anyway because it was more important to them to make a point than to show mercy." The broadcast reached every world in Coalition space. On some planets, the local governments tried to jam the signal, but human technical skills had grown during the exile. The message got through anyway. "We never wanted war," Bora continued. "We just wanted to live in peace. But when you exile an entire species, when you hunt their children through space, when you enslave their survivors, you don't create peace. You create something much more dangerous." She looked directly into the camera. "You create justice." On Nexus Prime, the Coalition capital, Chancellor Vex watched the broadcast with growing horror. Her crystalline body flickered through angry colors as she realized how badly the situation had spiraled out of control. "Cut the signal," she ordered. "We've tried," replied her communications minister. "The humans are using quantum relays we can't trace or block. The message is reaching every world in Coalition space." Chancellor Vex turned to Fleet Admiral Koss, who had replaced the disgraced Seogen. "How many worlds are in revolt?" 47 and counting, Admiral Koss reported. He was a massive creature from the Ursine Collective, with thick fur and claws that could tear through metal. "All worlds with human populations." "Then we use the planet killers," Chancellor Vex decided. "Complete sterilization. We'll blame it on human terrorism and rebuild later." Admiral Koss hesitated. The planet killer weapons were the Coalition's most closely guarded secret. Devices that could crack worlds and boil away atmospheres. They had been built during the human exile, supposedly to prevent any human world from becoming a threat. "Chancellor, that's 47 worlds, trillions of beings, and not all of them are human. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few," Chancellor Vex replied coldly. "Deploy the weapons. End this before it spreads further." But it was already too late. Deep in the hidden shipyards of the Terminus Nebula, Wusong put down his tool and looked up at the completion board. After 2 centuries of work, Project Renaissance was finally ready. Around him, the massive construction bays hummed with activity. Human workers and their robot assistants put the finishing touches on hulls that stretched for kilometers. These weren't crude copies of the Vengeance. They were improvements, each one incorporating lessons learned from the first ship's battles. "Final systems check complete," reported Chief Engineer Dana from the command center. "All 20 ships are ready for launch." Wusong nodded and activated the communication system. His message would reach every human ship hidden throughout the outer rim, every secret base built during the long exile, every human community that had spent 2 centuries preparing for this day. "This is Wusong, speaking from Renaissance Base. The exile is over. It's time to go home." One by one, the great ships powered up their drives. The KHS Indomitable, flagship of the Second Human Fleet. The KHS Retribution, built to crack planet killer stations. The KHS Mercy, designed to protect refugee ships. 20 ships in all, each one a monument to human determination and ingenuity. At the head of the fleet stood Admiral Sola, the daughter of refugees who had died trying to escape. Coalition space. She had spent her entire life preparing for this moment, training to lead humanity's children back to their birthright. "All ships, report status," she commanded from the Indomitable's bridge. One by one, the ships checked in. Each crew was made up of volunteers who had grown up on stories of blue skies and green oceans. They were the children of exile, and they were finally going home. "Fleet is ready, Admiral," reported her tactical officer. Admiral Sola looked out at the stars that had been forbidden to her people for so long. Somewhere out there was Earth, the world her ancestors had been forced to abandon. Somewhere out there was justice. "All ships jump," she ordered. The Second Human Fleet disappeared into hyperspace, carrying with it the hopes and dreams of every human who had ever looked up at the stars and wondered when they could go home. On coalition worlds throughout the DOA galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were coming in force. Intelligence reports spoke of massive ships emerging from hyperspace near coalition border worlds, ships that made the Vengeance look small. By comparison, Earth hung in space like a blue jewel, more beautiful than any of the human fleet had imagined. For 200 years, it had been forbidden to them, kept as a monument to dangerous evolution by the coalition. Now, 21 human dreadnoughts approached their ancestral home, ready to reclaim what had always been theirs. Fleet Commander Jiho stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, coordinating the assault. Around Earth, 300 coalition ships waited in defensive formation. It was the largest fleet the galaxy had ever assembled, pulled from every corner of coalition space to protect the symbolic heart of their empire. "All ships report ready," said Communications Officer Tyke. "The Second Fleet is in position." Admiral Sola's voice came through from the Indomitable. "Jiho, are you seeing what I'm seeing?" On the tactical display, Earth was surrounded by more than just ships. Massive orbital platforms bristled with planet-killer weapons, designed to crack worlds and boil away atmospheres. If the coalition couldn't keep Earth, they were prepared to destroy it rather than let humans reclaim their home. "They're willing to destroy Earth to stop us," Jiho said quietly. "They would rather see our home world die than admit they were wrong." "Then we'll have to make sure they don't get the chance," Admiral Sola replied. Chancellor Vex's image appeared on the main screen, her crystalline body glowing with angry red light. Behind her stood the leaders of every major coalition species, united in their determination to end the human threat once and for all. "Human fleet," she broadcast, "you are in violation of the Exile Treaty. You will withdraw immediately or face total annihilation." Fleet Commander Jiho stepped forward. He was young for a fleet commander, but his eyes held the weight of 2 centuries of exile. "Chancellor Vex, my name is Fleet Commander Jiho of the Human Defense Force. I speak for every human who was forced from their home, every child who died in the darkness between stars, every family torn apart by your so-called justice. The exile was legal under coalition law," Chancellor Vex insisted. "Humanity was judged too dangerous." "Too dangerous?" Jiho's voice cut through her words like a blade. "Let me tell you about dangerous, Chancellor. Dangerous is hunting refugee ships through hyperspace. Dangerous is bombing hospitals from orbit. Dangerous is enslaving children because their species doesn't know its place." He gestured toward the orbital weapons platforms surrounding Earth. "And dangerous is pointing planet-killer weapons at the world you claim to be protecting." "Chancellor," Vex's body flickered with uncomfortable colors. "Those weapons are a last resort if you withdraw peacefully." "No." The word was spoken quietly, but it filled the communication channel with ice. "We're done withdrawing, we're done running, we're done being afraid. Today, we come home." The battle began with the coalition fleet opening fire. 300 ships unleashed everything they had at the human formation. Energy weapons that could vaporize asteroids, missiles that could crack moons, beam weapons that could burn through any known armor. The space around the human fleet lit up like a star going nova. For a moment, the coalition crews thought they had won. Then the light faded and all 21 human ships were still there. "Impossible," whispered Admiral Koss from his flagship. "We hit them with enough firepower to destroy a planet. Their armor," said his tactical officer, staring at the sensor readings. "It's not just deflecting our weapons, it's absorbing them." Chief Engineer Minho monitored the Vengeance's systems with satisfaction. The new armor wasn't just crystal matrices anymore. During the exile, human scientists had learned to build materials that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Energy weapons couldn't destroy something that wasn't entirely in their dimension. "Hull integrity at 102%, he reported. "The enemy weapons are actually charging our systems." Fleet Commander Jiho smiled grimly. "Then let's return the favor. All ships, open fire." What followed was not a battle. It was a demonstration of everything humanity had learned during 2 centuries of exile. The human ships moved through the coalition fleet like predators among prey. Their weapons had evolved far beyond simple kinetic rounds and plasma cannons. These were quantum torpedoes that existed in multiple realities at once, gravity bombs that created miniature black holes, disintegration beams that unraveled matter at the atomic level. But the real surprise came from below. On Earth's surface, Nari stood in the control center of Terra Defense Command, a facility that officially didn't exist. Around her, human technicians worked at controls that had been built in secret over the past 50 years, constructed by humans who had never left Earth but had never forgotten their true loyalty. Planetary Defense Grid is online, reported her assistant Junho. All weapons platforms ready to fire. Nari nodded and opened a communication channel to the fleet above. Fleet Commander Jiho, this is Terra Control. The planet is ready to defend itself. Across Earth's surface, massive railgun installations rose from the ocean floors. Mountain ranges opened to reveal missile silos that had been hidden for decades. The planet itself became a fortress, bristling with weapons that had been waiting 2 centuries for this moment. Impossible, Chancellor Vex gasped as she watched her orbital platforms explode under fire from the surface. There are no human defense installations on Earth. We monitored everything. You monitored what we wanted you to see, came Nari's voice over the communication channel. Did you really think we would abandon our home world completely? Did you think every human left when you ordered the exile? The truth was staggering. For 200 years, a secret population of humans had remained on Earth, hidden in underground cities and deep-sea installations. They had posed as various alien species, worked in coalition facilities, and slowly built the infrastructure for this day. Every ship the coalition had built contained components manufactured by human hands. Every weapon system had backdoors that human programmers had carefully hidden. Every defense network had weaknesses that only humans knew about. Chief Engineer Minho activated the hidden subroutines that human workers had spent generations embedding in coalition technology. Across the enemy fleet, ships turned their weapons on each other as their own systems rebelled. What's happening? Admiral Koss demanded as his flagship's weapons targeted a friendly vessel. The humans, his engineering officer gasped. They built our ships. They programmed our systems. They've been planning this for centuries. Half the coalition fleet was now fighting the other half, their own weapons turned against them by hidden programming. The human ships moved through the chaos, picking off targets with surgical precision. But Chancellor Vex had one final card to play. If we cannot have order, then we choose chaos, she broadcast across all frequencies. Activate the Omega Protocol. Deep in space, beyond the battle, ancient weapons stirred to life. The Death Stars, massive space stations built during humanity's exile, each one capable of destroying entire star systems. They had been the Coalition's ultimate deterrent, weapons so terrible that they had never been used, until now. 5 Death Stars activating, reported Tactical Officer Huna. They're targeting Earth and the major human colonies. Fleet Commander Jiho felt ice in his veins. The Coalition was willing to destroy everything rather than accept defeat. They would rather commit genocide than admit they had been wrong about humanity. All ships intercept course, he ordered. We have to stop those weapons before they can fire. But they were too far away. The Death Stars would reach firing range in minutes, and there was no way the human fleet could intercept them in time. That's when Captain Jiwan spoke up from her command chair. Jiho, there's another way. She activated a communication channel that reached every human ship in the fleet, every human on Earth, every human throughout the galaxy. Her voice was calm and steady, the voice of someone who had always known this moment would come. My friends, she said, we always knew this day might come. We always knew the Coalition would rather destroy everything than let humanity return home. They underestimated us once. They're about to do it again. She paused, letting her words sink in. Every human ship is equipped with quantum resonance drives. We've never used them because they're too dangerous, too unstable. But if we synchronize them all, if we activate them at the same time, Admiral Sola understood immediately. A quantum cascade. It would create a wave that would disable every artificial system in the galaxy. Including life support on every coalition ship, Jiho added. And every human ship, too. Yes, Captain Jiwan said simply. But it would also stop the Death Stars. It would end this war completely. And it would prove, once and for all, that humanity is willing to sacrifice everything to protect what's right. The communication channel was silent for a long moment. Every human in the fleet understood what was being asked of them. They would die to save their homeworld and their people. They would give their lives to prove that humanity deserved to exist among the stars. One by one, the ship captains gave their consent. "The Indomitable stands ready," said Admiral Sola. "The Retribution is with you," came another voice. "The Mercy will follow where humanity leads. 21 ships, 21 crews, over 100,000 human souls, all willing to die for their species' future." Fleet Commander Jiho took a deep breath. "All ships, activate quantum resonance on my mark."